Hello and welcome back to Fusion 360 The Basics. My name is Roman and this is episode 6 where we're going to be getting out of normal model creation with what we've done so far, learning about joints, components, modify tools, and we're going to be going into the form and sculpting section of it. So just with this, this is the basic tools or basic things that we made so far along with some components just for testing out component capabilities. And these are the main two objects. So we have the Nevada keyring and the doorstop initial. Pretty simple stuff, but now we're going to get into form. So, like I said before, in the creation tab, we have this, which is the form button. It's pretty complicated once we go into here, but it's going to take us out of model, put us into sculpt. So you've entered the sculpt environment, use the finished form to return to solid modeling. These are not going to be solid when you use them. I'm going to be also, let's get out of here, go back to model real quick, and we're going to be hiding these bodies when we go into this. Oh, looks like they didn't go away. Uh, should be fine though. So now that we have this, now that we're in here, we have a lot of different options. We still have create and modify, but then we also have symmetry and utilities. So yeah, we're going to just be starting off with create. So this is a different kind of course, sketch as well, a different kind of playing field that we're going with, because what we're creating are these boxes. These boxes have different faces on them that can be molded pretty much infinitely with infinite possibilities attached to them. So just bringing out a box, I'll just put this right here, that size, and it has a bunch of different faces on it. Now these faces can be changed, they can be pulled, pressed, so we're just going to just put this here. Now that we have this here, we're going to be going to edit form. So the creation is basically the same thing as before. It has lofts, it has sweep, revolve, extrude, all the same stuff from modeling, except these are for these new objects, the forms. So modify, we can go to edit form. We're going to be clicking on this. There's a lot of different things you can do when it comes to editing forms. Selecting a face brings up a bunch of different options for editing this form. You can pull it and the entire form goes in that direction. So it's kind of like putty, unlike when it comes to something like the models, which are more hard and like you can tell by the edges and whatever. Forms are much more like putty. You can like freely put them where you want them. You do like sandpit, something like this. So something like this like flat thing, that is very hard to do with a normal model, but in Sculpt it's pretty simple. So yeah, just by selecting different parts, you can mold it into the shape that you want. There's a bunch of different tools you can expand, shrink those down. Everything here is pretty straightforward. You can change the transform mode that you want to go for. So there's like basic transformation stuff, like the same thing from that. You can change it to rotate, so you can change your form and like rotate the direction you want it at different angles. And of course, there's scaling, so it's direct scaling to what you're doing. But of course, the multi, which is the multi tool, which is everything at once, it's probably the most useful, even though it's a little bit crowded. Yeah, getting used to modeling forms and doing things with forms is pretty simple. Of course, you can also turn on object snap, so there's like much less looseness when it comes to everything. So yeah, there you go. It snaps in a certain direction. We're not going to be going through with that though. So going down with everything, of course, you can also create a simple T-spline plane to turn into something like this. But with objects, cylinders, whatever, it's much easier just to bring out one of these. These do not have keybinds on them, unfortunately, so you will have to be dragging these instantly. Now, in the form editing, so you can do a lot of stuff here. A lot of this stuff can be used for editing with this. So, of course, this is inserting an edge, selecting the 2 points that you want an edge, and then selecting it. It can get a little bit wonky, so the edge was created right there. If you have something like this, but let's remove this and create another box, just a mess switch. Let's mess around with this box. So now we can go over to where we are, insert edge, so we can turn this edge, bring it apart from this one. Let's do both sides. So we can double measure the edge. There we go. So it's not really noticeable like up front, but there is like a little edge gap in between both of those that we just did using the insert edge tool. And subdivide, which allows you to divide faces together. So yep, just something like that. It turns them into different segments of that face, and then you can select if you want to keep them like that for more modification, and you can continue to do this until there's like very easy modeling. So if you're doing like a large scale project, something like this. Let's say you want a lot of faces to edit. You just gave yourself a lot of faces to edit. Yeah. Results may vary, of course, when you are editing these faces. Like accidentally created a black hole, but of course that's what modeling is all about. And most of the things that you do cancel, will come back to haunt you eventually. So I'm going to just be undoing that and bringing myself over back to modify. So inserting a point allows you to select an edge and put a point at those edges and put them together. So stuff in between there can be edited easily, or you need that point for use, and you just want to mark it down. So let me mark these 2 points together, and they all form together. I made the little dipper. Yep. So easy for inserting points, selecting that, and you can divide them into multiple faces. Pretty good. Merge ed. So mostly for overhanging stuff, you can merge two bodies together. We only have the one body here though, so we're not going to be going through with that. And bridging objects together, of course. You select two sides or two faces, and they will bridge together, or they should bridge together if they're differently connected. Kind of like combining objects together in model, but in sculpt they will bridge it together. And fill hole, which is pretty self-explanatory. If there's a hole in there and selecting the form, it'll fill it up with more of these checkered squares that can be edited. So modify has a bunch of different uses for it. Thicken, of course. A lot of this stuff is, of course, there's like the fillet tool, very similar to other tools that we already know. Bridging tools, like spines. Pulling objects together. It's a lot of the objects that we already know, but they're for these forms right here. So, of course, even mirroring and circular views. So, with utilities. These are utilities like this. You can change the display mode of the object, so you can see the. Let's select this. And now we can change it to look more blocky, or how it would normally look if it was in model, and to a frame like this. Or change it, let me reselect this, or change it to how it would normally look, more blocky, or like this, because it gives it the curves edges while it's in this mode, but you can change it out of this mode, or while it's like unselected like that. So you can give it different views. Yeah, so now I have it like that. Yeah, it gives it a different view, so I'm going to go back and switch the display mode back to normal blocky. Oh, let me switch that back to, yeah, that like that. Probably the best mode for this kind of, that. Give it that marshmallow look. So pretty cool that you can change the display modes like that, pretty simple. And of course, repairing the body just in case there's any errors. There shouldn't be any errors with this one, of course. Auto repair. Yeah, there's no issues with it. You can change the way the block looks, of course, just like in utilities. But this is for errors such as when I did the wormhole a few minutes ago. Stuff like that can be instantly repaired using repair body. And make uniform is just for turning it back to how it originally was. It gets rid of most of the errors in it, so it's like they keep the lines the same on most of the sides just by turning it into uniform. And converting, which is probably one of the best tools you can use for this. You can convert a mesh into a T-spine body. So you can take an object that you've converted. You can turn meshes into T-spines, which can be used in the sculpt tool. You can turn T-spines into B-reps and B-reps into T-spines. All so you can put them inside of sculpt and export them. And that's about it for this. These work the same. These can be extruded as in modify to bring out sketches that instantly turn into forms. And that's about it for forms. If you go over finish form, and now the form after coming out of sculpt, it'll be put back into model, and it'll have a much more model look to it. So most of the edges that we could edit are no longer there, and now we have this perfect cube, edited slightly. So to end this part off, I'm going to be downloading this cube. So to download a cube or download it for certain properties, you can right button click on it and go down to save as STL. Now this is probably one of the most useful tools in Fusion 360. Just by clicking at save as STL, it'll go over and you can select the format you want to save it as and the refinement you want it as. STL files, of course, are for 3D printing to convert in slicers, so you can 3D print stuff like this out. So if you ever decide to 3D print something, you're like, oh, where are the tools to... Oh, I can't get the STL file for it. The STL, you just gotta right button click and save as STL. Pretty simple. Pretty simple stuff all around. So, this is about it for the Fusion tutorial, part 6. My name is Roman, and this has been Fusion 360, The Basics.